So in this video, I'd like to share with you a little bit about how to solve with hyperbolic functions and inverse hyperbolic functions. And we can do this using our trusty calculator. Now, turning my calculator on and taking a look at some of the functions and formulas I'm dealing with in your study guide on this particular page, these are the definitions of hyperbolic functions. And these are pretty useful, in fact, when we're trying to find values. They also have their own identities. They also have their own derivatives and integrals. And we can also work with, on the next page, inverse hyperbolic functions and the derivatives and integrals of those, much like we can work with derivatives and integrals of trig functions and derivatives and integrals of inverse trig functions as well. So what I'd like to share with you is I'd like to go through the study guide with you in Part A. And some of this we can do in our calculator, and I want to talk a little bit about that with you right now, but others of them can be done just by using some of the formulas that we have, say, on top here and on the previous page. So let's start talking about the calculator part here. And so you notice that you don't have buttons on your calculator that will do hyperbolic functions. So what we have to do is we have to see if we can go out and find them. So what we do is we can go to second and hit 0, and when you hit 0, you will get into the catalog. And we've mentioned this once before, but you'll notice that we have an A up here. And this means I can select a letter right now without hitting alpha, and I can go ahead and get into the functions the calculator has that begin with that letter. For example, if I were just to hit and find the letter C above program, these are all the functions my calculator has that begin with C. Or maybe I'm looking for a V function, like vegetable. Well, there's not a vegetable function for those of you that love your vegetables. So this is a quick way to navigate through the catalog. Now, the first one we have on the study guide is the hyperbolic cosine of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and hit C, since it still has the A here. And I'm going to kind of scroll through and find cosh. Well, no, that's hyperbolic cosine. And I find it. And I can go ahead and hit enter on it and select it. And then what I can do is I can go ahead and put 3 in, and I've got it. Now we're still working in radians, so that's mode, and we're still in that. And so this is the result I was able to get. And so I can go to my study guide and I can jot that in. Using the calculator, I ended up with an answer of 10.068. So what if you have formula sheets, and what if you go, well, I can't remember how to do this on my calculator. How else can I get this answer? Well, an alternative to getting this is to go to the previous page in your study guide and to locate the particular formula that goes with it, namely this right here. So this is the hyperbolic cosine, and it's e to the x plus e to the negative x over 2. So what I can do then is every time I see an x, I can put in the 3. So doing so would result in e to the third plus e to the negative third all over 2. And those are equivalent. In fact, if we put this in a calculator, we would get the same thing. So when we do the next one, which is hyperbolic cosecant of 2, well, I'm going to go back to my calculator and hit second and 0 to get in the catalog. Now again, I have the A, so I'm going to select C, and I'm going to see if I have a CSHC function, and I do not. So the calculator doesn't help me in this case. But I have a formula. And so the formula I have is, well, right over here. Well, it's 1 over the hyperbolic sine of 2. Well, if I have a hyperbolic cosine function, I'm guaranteed to have a hyperbolic sine function. So I could put this in my calculator by doing 1 over hyperbolic sine of 2 using my calculator. But the other thing I could do is I know that the relationship between hyperbolic cosec and hyperbolic sine are they're reciprocal relationships. So just an easiest way to do this could be to take hyperbolic sine and make the reciprocal of it to solve this. So let me go ahead and do that. That would make it then 2 over e to the second power minus e to the negative second power. And I can put that in my calculator and go from there. Now, if I try it with my trusty calculator, I could do the following. I could do 1 divided by, and then I can go into my catalog, and I'm finding hyperbolic sines, so that begins with S. And I'm going to look through the list, being careful I select the right one. And there it is. And I'll put a 2 in, and that's what I get. And I'll get the same thing, 0.276 for this one. Okay, well, these are inverse hyperbolic functions, and so when I do these, well, they have their own formulas as well. And so these are listed right up here above. So what I could do is I could say, okay, well, that's the natural log of x, so then in this case it'd be 7 plus, and then we'd have 7 squared plus 1. And if I do that, I get 2.644. Now, calculator, will it do the same thing? So I'll hit second and 0, and I'm looking for the s's again, but I'm looking for the inverse hyperbolic sine. And this is just an introduction to what these do. There it is. I'll put in 7, and there is my 2.644. And then finally, if I look at this last one now, if I were to use the formula up above here for the inverse hyperbolic tangent of 5, then that's going to be 1/2. And the natural log of, now that's a quantity, so it'd be 1 plus 5 over 1 minus 5. Well, we have a problem here because that's the natural log of a negative number. And so the result of this is going to be undefined. It's not going to work out. And we could verify that with the technology. So what I could do is I could go into this, and again, second 0, and I need t this time for hyperbolic inverse tangent. That's a mouthful. And I can put in 5, and it didn't like it either. So that's how we can use the calculator to solve some of these hyperbolic functions and inverse hyperbolic functions. So we'll see you next time when we work a little bit more with these.